Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for yet another informative fireside chat on topic, why are diversity and inclusion important in India in today's time? With that said, I would now like to invite Dr. Ritu Anand, Chief Leadership and Diversity Officer, Tata Consultancy Services, and Mr. Animesh Kumar, President, HR and Transformation, Z Entertainment Enterprises Limited.
Thank
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Over to you.
Good morning to everybody, and thank you, Ankita. Welcome, Animesh, and I am very delighted to be here. India Diversity Forum resonates something which I am very looking forward to, that my passion will become a reality. Why are we talking about diversity after so many years? I have, as many of you would also have an opinion about diversity. I just cannot imagine that how long we will continue to talk about diversity. Is diversity not around us? If in India, if we go back many decades, unity in diversity. India is diversity in itself. Still, in corporate India, we keep talking about diversity. I remember when I started this discussion and focus 13 years ago, I remember very precisely the year when I started even realizing that I need to talk about diversity 14 years ago. I used to realize that, that there is so much around me which is different, but that is not mirrored in the corporate that I am world that I am seeing, whether it is panel discussions, whether it is speakers on the podium, whether it is the faces on the magazines. You never saw enough diversity. And from India lens, I want to very clearly describe, because I represent a global company and diversity means completely different things. It means people of color, people who belong to different cultures. Of course, culture differences are in India also. And I will keep saying TCS because TCS mirrors the global society that we live in. Whatever happens in India and the world happens in my organization. So the reason why I'm here, the reason why even I can dare to say something is because I represent an organization of 500,000 people almost, and the largest employer world, and we see everything what is happening up close in a closed environment. So I have really, I want to, in the next 15-20 minutes with Animesh, I want a conversation which is not talking about the usual stuff. There are certain things which are hygiene issues now, and the organizations which are not even there, they need to really get that quickly done back end. And the conversation has to move to the next level, that what actually you want to do in the workplace. I have to now change my narrative also, because working from home, working virtually has given us a time to learn new words, and the narrative has to be from a lens of workplace. Office is passé. So why diversity? Why do we even want to or have to talk about it? So, Animesh, I want to leave the physical persona of diversity on the side, and I want our conversation to focus on a little more that what it means to be gender intelligent and gender blind. I want you to let me know, let the audience know, why shouldn't I be happy being gender blind?
Dr. Anand, may I refer to you as Ritu, though you have so many iconic leader, but it's such a pleasure to have this conversation. And I think you've led in with just from my perspective, I think the most important narrative on diversity. And there's so many terms that are being bandied about: gender positive, gender blind, gender neutral, etc. And I think gender intelligent is probably the most appropriate word or the most appropriate phrase that I think needs to influence and inform the narrative of diversity, socially as well as within corporates. And to me, it really means acknowledging the difference and not discriminating because of the difference. There are in the behavioral space, there is the whole framework of nature and nurture. And there are certain things that come to you because of nature, because you're of a certain gender or you have had a certain set of experiences, whether it's a religion or orientation or the regions of the country or the world that you belong to. There is nurture that influences that, and nature which just comes from the family that you grow up, the gender that you are, etc., etc. And gender intelligent is being able to play to the strengths that come uniquely to being of a specific gender or having had a certain set of life experiences, all representing a certain cultural framework around that, which is really made you a certain kind of human being. So how do you respect, how do you celebrate the difference and not discriminate against the difference is, to my mind, what gender intelligent is. And honestly, that's really in the business that we are in, which is serving almost 1 billion viewers worldwide, which represents such diverse cultural nuances and have such different stories and such different narratives that they all have, that we are perforce diverse. And we can have a more detailed discussion on the whole term gender intelligent, Ritu. But I wanted to bring in one fact, and just as an aside, the argument about gender diversity, and because the topic was titled "Why should India focus on gender diversity?" and I think you put it right there, that the basics are already in place, and anybody who doesn't have the basics really needs to get that sorted very rapidly. But in all the work and the research that I was doing, there's one study that caught my eye. It was a study done by Paul Gompers and Sylvia Kowali. It's a Harvard study. And why I caught my eye is because it's one of the only studies that at least I've come across that establishes causality, not correlation, but causality between diversity and improved performance. And what Gompers and Kowali did is that they studied venture capital companies. Because of the certain nature, the venture capital companies were the equivalent of lab rats in their terminology. They studied that in great detail over publicly available information. And because venture capital companies are so staggeringly homogenous, and I won't go into the whole detail, but a 10% improvement in diversity, which in an American context is gender, blacks, and Hispanics, led to a dramatic improvement, 1.5% improvement in their overall returns, which is phenomenal for a venture capital firm, and almost a 10% improvement in profitable exits. And to my mind, that is in that study is fundamentally the reason why I think diversity is important. It's not about fairness. It's not about all the other factors, though those are equally important. But just very simply, better diversity leads to better business outcomes, plain and simple. That is why we all need to be incredibly focused around that. But let me stop here and coming back to you.
I'm going to, by the time we end this conversation, we would have dealt with some bold statements and bold these things, so that there are takeaways in the end also. There is no denying the fact, and there are many more studies than this, in addition to this, which say, and I don't want to waste too much time on this because I want people to take away, as to whoever is listening, what we will do tomorrow, if at all you want to do something about it tomorrow. And that is the reason for IDF to be formed. And that's why I am even remotely connected with it. Diversity is a driver for innovation. It is given. I have, in my organization, we have accepted, we will not talk about why at all. If you can also take that bold decision, that will be very good. Why? If you don't know, go and check the literature, go and check the Google. It's a lot of stuff is there in the place. Or look around the families which are heterogeneous. You know how happy and successful they would be. Inclusion breeds creativity given. Inclusion, once it is there, a diversity actually increases performance. Your thousands become millions and millions becomes billion, and you just have to be at it. Why? Because diversity of thought is what I am going for. The diversity of perspective. I don't care whether people are from south or north, whether people are brown or black or white. It doesn't matter. We have all sorts of things. People in India itself, people have cultures which are as different as anybody could be. Imagine if a person from far east and a person from west, very cosmopolitan upbringing, come together along with a person who has been bred in an entrepreneurial environment in north and a very service culture in south. If four of them are in my team, I cannot even imagine that what my team performance would be. So it diversity brings variety of different perspective, it increases creativity, it leads to faster problem solving, it has better decision making capability, and your employee engagement, employees perspective and existing see where you are. So with all these benefits, the question I want to now revolve around is that what is in the face of current movement, okay, the systemic barriers that we have, how can we capitalize on this I would say unprecedented watershed movement, when people have to come and show action and not conversation. There are no big forums where we are we can say and get away with it. We now have to act. So let's talk about, Animesh, a couple of solutions or the actions which you and I can take or have taken, which could be a big takeaway. How to, or how have you increased your gender diversity in overall Z entertainment enterprise, or in leadership, and in leadership? And I will share mine.
Thank you. And let me just put a little bit of context. I think there are two parts to this. There's the whole framework of organic diversity, which I think happens because there are genuinely good managers and leaders in most organizations who don't have bias and who bring talent, that is because good talent into the organization. But I think it's required that we go beyond organic to design, and designing for improving diversity. In Z, we're really taking three approaches. One is to address the supply side constraints. How do you, given that it's a much smaller industry compared to technology and the whole tech-enabled digital commerce industries, we need to bring a lot more talent into the ecosystem. And what we've done is really institutionalize a process where we are over-indexing on hiring more girls at the intake, at the fresh intake level. Upwards of between 65 and 70% of our hires at our management trainee batches are only women, and that's by design. We're also institutionalizing a process, and we've experimented, some succeed, some fail, where we are looking at bringing people from outside the media entertainment industry at the middle management levels, and therefore improving diversity ratios there. And the last piece on the whole supply side is to provide very focused interventions that increases the internal supply of leadership, going from middle management to senior management within the organization, so that we are able to increase the leadership and the ratios at the leadership level within the organization. While we are doing reasonably well at overall diversity levels, we definitely need to do a lot more design-led interventions, focused work on improving leadership diversity. The second piece that we are doing is really to address a whole bunch of conscious and unconscious biases. And while there are a series of programs that call these out and have internal conversations around them, the one area which is a very hard measure is to move much more to psychometric and skill-based assessments rather than traditional interview techniques which allow for unconscious biases to play out. So how do we try and bring in a lot more assessment-driven interviews and assessment-driven assessment of candidates? And the whole famous example of the Philharmonic and how there's unconscious bias that comes into when you're hiring people. And the last one is really about creating a culture of two parts. One is, and honestly, COVID, I think, has accelerated that. One was on providing increased flexibility. Because we're cognizant that the societal construct that we live in, where women do take a very large part of the work that is at home and broadly in families. So flexibility allows for that to an increased flexibility. Like I said, COVID, I think, has been the absolute end argument on making sure that flexibility becomes the norm for the way we work going forward. And the other is around a lot of work around recognition and building a psychological, emotional, physically safe workspace. So it's a whole systems approach, and given as old as I am, I think Peter Senge was one of our defining thought leaders, and the whole systems thinking approach. How do you bring a whole systems approach? We're not going to solve the problem in a year, and which is why we've set ourselves a target to say that we will be almost 50-50 gender diverse organization across various hierarchy levels by 2025. Going with the whole adage that we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years, which is Bill Gates' famous line.
Where are you now?
Sorry?
Where are you now?
On diversity?
Yeah.
We're 25% at the overall organizational level. There are certain teams that are in excess of 50%, which is, like I said, there is organic diversity. And there are certain teams that tend to work in shifts and things like that, which are at 3 and 4%. So that's the whole, how do you design for improving diversity in some of those spaces? Because there are real constraints of talent supply, etc., that happen in some of those.
In 4 years and 11 months, I will come to you. Okay, and I'm sure you would achieve your target much before that, because I'm not staking any claim and target setting. I believe firmly, and that's why I'm putting it out to the audience, that this is my belief, that what gets measured gets done. And last 13 years, that's what we have been doing. And today we stand very nicely at 37% overall gender diversity. And we are going up from, in the last 2 years, 5% we have increased at the top level also. Of course, we are nowhere near where we should want to be or where should be. But I just don't want, again, going into the very provocative, statements. I frankly speaking, unconscious bias and lack of talent are something I just don't want us to talk in going forward. Okay, biases will always be there, were there also. However, the skills were important in the workplace. They will always be important. I want to now take only positive words. So let me flip. It's very difficult, but let me flip the statement. When does gender become a non-discussion for us going forward when we are choosing a leader? And if at all, one thing HR can do or should do is to ensure that you are asking the right questions to your CEO, to your business leaders at any level. Even if you're a trainee HR or a senior HR, doesn't matter. It is not somebody else's job. It is your job to ensure that you ask the question that, have you selected the best candidate? Or there are other pointers or considerations which are playing on your mind consciously or subconsciously. Let me tell you, Animesh, that in my experience, the decisions are conscious, but they are branded as unconscious. What role all of you are playing to ensure that these unconscious, so-called unconsciously branded decisions become consciously right decisions? And all my initiatives should be and are towards that, because we have talked a lot in India, especially our gender index, our place in the whole gender index is going down and down, and it pains us. And me, many of you also would have believed, what can I do? I can only do this much. But in the last couple of years or 3 years, with the support of the top leadership and be representing the largest conglomerate of human talent, only from that reason, nothing else, we have stopped saying this. So whether it is a CSR agenda, or whether it is internal diversity agenda, which is what I lead, I will ensure that we are making our piece. And that is why I'm saying that there will be sessions coming on cognitive diversity subsequently, but I want to say that this diversity of the mind model which we have created around the values of your company, adding behavior to each value and making it into a flower, it is going absolutely phenomenally crazy among our customers and our leaders. That lens, when you speak to men and women, that you are on the right direction. I also want to talk and hear about quick opinion from you also on this. I run a program for the last 9-10 years in TCS, which is dedicated to women leaders. Okay, because after 15-20 years, there is an aspiration deficit kind of a thing settles in for a woman for a variety of reasons, and I don't want to talk about those reasons. There are so many articles which talk about this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the conditioning. No. So when I have a program for the last 10-11 years I'm running, where nudge up, and that's how my presence upwards is increasing. Many people ask me, why only for women? Why are you doing it for women? You are segmentizing. I have a personal opinion. I want to hear yours also. And you mentioned when we were talking offline also. It's not about branding women that they are special. I started my career 30 years ago, saying that I'm not a woman. My boss was a man. My leaders have always been men. So I used to tell him, don't treat me as a woman. I'm not a woman. I've made choices. I've made compromises, whatever may be the case, but don't treat me like a woman. But after 15 years, I realized that I was a woman. So I, immediately caught on, and that piece is very special to me. So till I am 50-50, I will not leave that program, come what may. Over to you, Animesh.
Ritu, I couldn't agree more. I think the approach that I've adopted, and exactly to the point that you made, we're not going to lower the bar, because there is what is required to be a leader. And without getting into the reason why there is an aspiration dip or other constraints, how do we create, and we're creating those structured interventions, that's exactly what you're saying, that focuses on women at the mid-management level and pushes them and skills them and addresses both the how and the what part, that creates the aspiration and the ability to step up into the next level of job.
Very good. I mean, Animesh, this conversation can continue forever, and I am loving the views that we have been exchanging, but time is time. And, the whole idea was to give all of you who are listening a flavor of where we can go if we take this, this topic in depth, seriously. Okay. And it has to be sponsored from the very top. The kind of impact you can make, is phenomenal. Just take things in your hand. Be gender intelligent, be gender neutral, and create initiatives within your organization attuned to the values and see how a bud becomes flower. Thank you very much, IDF, and thank you very much, Animesh, for having a conversation with me. Thank you.
Ritu, lovely. It was a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you so much. And IDF, thanks a ton for having this.
Over to Ankita.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anand. Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. Indeed, I can say a very fruitful discussion on such an important topic. And especially, Dr. Anand, when you kept saying that, after 13 years is when you realized. So, I mean, that's precisely who are women today. I mean, it does take time, but when it hits you is when you know that it's going to become a revolution.